Since No Way Home, the demand for Andrew Garfield to return as Spider-Man in a third Amazing Spider-Man film has skyrocketed. Currently, there are rumors of him appearing in Venom 3 and even the Morbius spin-off film that's been recently delayed taking place in the Amazing Spider-Man universe. While it would be nice for Andrew to return in those films, I think the main thing that everybody wants is the Amazing Spider-Man 3, and in this video I wanted to share my story ideas for this film if it were to be made. I've recently fell in love again with the Amazing Spider-Man universe while watching videos on what could have been, and just giving into the overall hype surrounding this universe post No Way Home. In this video, I won't be telling the whole story from start to finish, but simply what I would want from the film if it were to be made and what direction I would like to see the character go in after the Amazing Spider-Man 2's tragic ending. We do know that Andrew became bitter after the film, so in this video I wanted to explore that since it would also provide some insight to his appearance in No Way Home, meaning that my Amazing Spider-Man 3 takes place before No Way Home. So let's begin. What I would want in the Amazing Spider-Man 3 if it were to be made, or just simply my story idea. First, we'll start with the villain. I think the obvious choice after the events of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is to go the black suit route, since Peter would be at one of the darkest moments in his life after the death of Gwen, and seeing everybody in his life has turned on him except for Aunt May. At this point, he will have lost Harry, Gwen, Uncle Ben, Dr. Connors, Captain Stacy, so the black suit would be the perfect fit for the film. Not only is the stage of Peter's life a good reason for the black suit storyline being adapted, but the Ultimate Comics black suit story is about Eddie Brock and Peter Parker reconnecting and discovering more about their parents that played into the Ultimate Spider-Man video game. This works perfectly for the Amazing Spider-Man universe and would be a good way to conclude the untold story, but the hard part is about adapting this storyline is whether it would include Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock. I think it would need some serious retconning from the Venom films for this to work, but maybe an easy idea is that Oscorp and the Life Foundation were the ones working together on the symbiotes, so kind of a mix of Ultimate Comics and 616 with Eddie and Peter's parents only running experiments on the symbiotes and not creating them. If this were to include Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock, then I think he would have the move back to New York in this film, kind of paralleling Harry in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, except for this time Peter is the one to turn on his friend thanks to the black suit that would lead into Tom Hardy taking out Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man in Venom 3. In my Amazing Spider-Man 3, Eddie Brock and the black suit would play a big part, but Venom wouldn't be the main villain. Instead, it would be Norman Osborn, who is in this film after faking his death in TASM 2. This movie would be meant to conclude the untold story, and given that Norman had Peter under surveillance throughout his entire life and is responsible for the death of his parents, I don't think any other villain would be the right choice to finish the story with. Personally, I would scrap the Sinister Six setup for this movie for Norman to sort of have a fine, I'll do it myself moment, but overall, for the villains in this film, I would like it to be a personal battle between Peter and the symbiote plus Norman Osborn. I think it would also be interesting if throughout the film Peter doesn't know who the Goblin is, as the mutation could have gotten worse from what Harry had in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they could kind of do a spectacular Spider-Man inspired story where Harry was being framed as the Goblin just for it to be Norman all along. Moving on from the villain, a key aspect in every Spider-Man film is the love interest, which my pick for the love interest after Gwen would be Black Cat. She was set up in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, played by Felicity Jones, and I think she could serve as a good side villain, while Peter is wearing the black suit before dealing with Norman Osborn. And I also include her because she doesn't always have the best intentions at times. Peter would be broken in this film since he would still be dealing with the loss of Gwen, and mixing that in with the black suit and Black Cat could lead into a Spider-Man that seems to be doing more worse than good. I also think her and Black Suit Spider-Man just work so well together. So while I would like to see Mary Jane in the Amazing Spider-Man universe, especially after her scenes were cut in the second film, I don't think she should come in until after Peter wears the suit. Next, I would like to see Aunt May's story progress in the movie, revealing that she knows that Peter is Spider-Man. This was hinted at in TASM 2, and although we have seen an Aunt May who knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man on screen and is cool with it, in this film I would like to make it so she's against Peter Parker being Spider-Man out of fear of losing him like she did Ben and Peter's parents. I think this would be an interesting choice, as we've already seen an Aunt May who is supportive to Peter in these Spider-Man films, but I also think a rougher relationship between the two could be explored in this film that plays into the black suit story. I think this film should not only conclude the untold story, but basically a moral struggle for Peter deciding whether it's right for him to continue being Spider-Man, seeing how much it's hurt and ruined everything for him and the people around him. I'd like him to feel very isolated in the film, feeding into the symbiote that plays into him explaining to Tom in No Way Home that he got bitter and eventually stopped pulling his punches, and maybe a moment like that in the film could be when he realizes that the suit is changing him. I'd also like to think that with the untold story being concluded, that Oscorp itself must be destroyed, not in the sense that the entire tower needs to be demolished, But in the Amazing Spider-Man universe, Oscorp is responsible for all of the villains, so if you defeat Norman as the Goblin, then you defeat his legacy as well. By the end of the film, I'd like Peter to make amends with everybody he's hurt during the Black Suit era, and I'd also like for him to distance himself from Black Cat as he's realizing that she's bad news for him. Depending on if Sony wants to go further with the Amazing Spider-Man for a 4th film, then you could tease Mary Jane at the end of the film saying her famous line, but I really think that the only tease in this film should be for Venom 3 if Tom Hardy's Venom is to be included. Like I said, if this were to include Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock, then I think this film should establish the fallout between the two and then set up Venom vs. Spider-Man in Venom 3. Again, this isn't an entire story in this video, and there would be a much more in-depth video to explain if I did do that, but these are just my hopes and ideas if there is an Amazing Spider-Man 3. Black Suit's story that plays into the untold story with Norman Osborn's Green Goblin being the main villain and Peter feeling like he does a lot more wrong than he does right as Spider-Man. So let me know what you all think and what your ideas for the Amazing Spider-Man 3 would be if this film were to be made, and if you liked my ideas. And as always, thanks for watching, be sure to subscribe, follow my social medias, hit that like button, and I will see you guys again in my next video.